All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom. I'm typically here with George, but he is stuck in traffic right now. So he said he will be in the chat for now. So hello, George, if you can hear me, and he may be joining us later. And hello, I see a bunch of members in the chat as well. Hello to you guys, and hello to everyone. Tough day. Today was not so great, but we got to talk it over, see what it means. Is it time to panic? Is it time to buy? Is it time to smash the like button? Yes, please, if you could do us a favor and give us a thumbs up and hit the like button. We are at 10 likes. We're going for 100 likes. We know the market's doing poorly. We had back-to-back weeks where we didn't get there after 4 years of getting there every time. So we've been back on track lately. Do us a favor, smash the like button. Enough said. Let's talk about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, the market, the jobs report, and interest rates. And I want to start with the jobs report because really that is 100% of everything was about today. And this job report makes me nuts. And I'm going to go through it, and I've talked about it. You can go back and check my streams. It's a nonsense number. And the market reacts to it like it's etched in stone, the be all end all. This number gets revised so many times, and it's not just by a little bit. I mean, they were off by depending on how you want to calculate it, 90% they were wrong by for months in a row. So there was a monumental revision down, and then this month was no good. And I'm going to show you the numbers in a minute. But my point is, if they can just revise, oh, by the way, and then once a year, they gross the whole thing up and say, hey, you know what? Everything was wrong last year. We were off. Last year, they said, sorry, it was 800,000 less jobs than we thought. So it's looking at this one report, I would just caution everybody. You gotta take it in stride. Things are getting political. There was reasons I think this report looks worse than it is. And this just flipped the narrative 100%. So we're going to talk about what I've been talking about for a long time. They will be doing rate cuts, and the market today just finally accepted what George and I have been talking about for several months on the channel. And Jerome Powell, it's time to retire. That's my personal opinion. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm afraid that possibly you don't know what you're doing either. And, or worse yet, you might know what you're doing because our monetary policy right now is absolutely baseless in my opinion. So if you guys disagree with me, let me know in the comments section. I'm going to put up a poll. Okay, let's get that poll going. Real simple question. Did the Fed blow it by not lowering interest rates yet this year? They just had an opportunity 2 days ago, and they didn't do it. So, Sour Melon Gaming. I'm staying positive. Good. Very good. Glad to hear. Long-time member. So welcome, and I'm glad you're staying positive. I do think this is, for those of you that were on the Tuesday members-only live stream, I talked about a really good chance that we will be retesting $112,000. So We had a poll. We were about 50-50 split on it, but we talked, one of two things is going to happen, and it is entirely possible. In fact, it would be normal. I went as far as to say it would be healthy, actually, in the long run, to go back and have a successful retest. So here we sit at about 113.5. So we are almost done on our way down to retesting 112. Now, we'll see if that holds or not, right? There's no guarantee that that holds, but I did do a little bit of buying this week. And if we get to 112, unless I miss it over the weekend, which is possible, they do that to us sometimes, right? We may go down, test 112, bounce off of it over the weekend, and then, if you're trading the stocks, if you're trading the cryptocurrency, you get the chance to buy it. If you're trading the stocks, you miss your window over the weekend on stuff like that. So I did buy in. I'll let you guys guess what I bought. But I did buy some more, and I will buy some more next week if we retest 112. I am still the same amount of positive on where Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners are going as I was yesterday or 5 days ago or a month ago. I will grant everybody, if you're looking at the board, it was awful today. This was a red board across the board. Riot got just absolutely taken out. It was down 17.75%. That's one of my bigger positions. So I just got wailed on today with that one. And, CleanSpark down 8%, CIFR down 9.7%, Bitfarms down 7.9%, TerraWolf down 7.5%. This was not a good day. It was a very tough day for the Bitcoin miners. But that had, again, this is not a referendum on the Bitcoin miners. The Russell 2000 got destroyed today, just destroyed. And these are all those small cap kind of stocks. And it's all because of the jobs report. So, I think you got to look past the jobs report, which was bad, and say, hey, wait a second. This is going to lead to the good thing we've been waiting for, which is lower interest rates. So let me get to those two reports, because I think we can't talk about anything until we talk about those two things, because it's the reason we have one of the worst days for Bitcoin miners all year. And you guys know we've had actually much worse than this, but this is, let's call it what it is. This was a horrible day for the Bitcoin miners, and it was not a great day for Bitcoin. And it's been, we peaked at 123,000 a couple of weeks ago, and we're down to 113,000. We're down $10,000 on Bitcoin. But again, natural, normal retests. We haven't even hit our first line of support to retest yet. So later I'll go to the 1 day and we'll take a look at that. And there's a bunch of announcements from the Bitcoin miners. So there is a lot to talk about. But let me go to the jobs, because this is it. U.S. adds just 73,000 jobs in July. Now, that's not the story at all. So they're already burying the lead. And the numbers for the prior months were revised much lower. Much lower? We're going to take a look at this. And this is why I say, pay no attention to this number. It's likely to change by 100% or 200% or 500%. Non-farm payrolls totaled 73,000 for July. Dow Jones estimate for a gain was 100,000. And I've seen numbers higher than that. So everybody was expecting July to be better than this. But here's what's worse. June and May totals were revised sharply lower, down by a combined 258,000. Yes, 250,000 jobs. So let's see if they give us the numbers, because this is staggering. Come on, guys. Let's see. The June total came down from the previous data. So the last time we got this report, just what happened just today, 1 month ago, we got a report saying, hey, guess what? 147,000 new jobs in June. While the May count fell to 19,000 from 100. So in 2 months ago, they said 125,000. Last month, they said 147,000. Those two numbers, look at this. They got revised down to 19,000 and 14,000. The worst 2 months in years. Yet the market was led to believe a month ago and 2 months ago that the jobs numbers were fantastic. I mean, you can't revise from 147,000. I think this statement is wrong. I think it was 147 revised down to 19,000, and then 147,000. Let's see, down to 14,000. 147,000. They said a month ago, and now they're saying, "Oops, I'm sorry, we were wrong about that. It's actually 14,000." I mean, that's so wrong that it becomes actually even worse than meaningless data. It's manipulative data. Now, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just going to state the obvious. The Fed has not lowered rates one time all year. And just 2 days ago, Jerome Powell stood up there and bragged about how great the job market was. So are we shocked that 2 days later, we get a report that says, actually, the job market's awful? So, this is why you can't, I don't ever take these as a part of my long-term strategy. I will trade if there's an opportunity. If something tanks for no reason, this is a good buying opportunity. But I don't take these reports seriously, and I mean that honestly. And how can you take a report seriously that a month ago said we had 147,000 new jobs, and now this month they're saying, "Oh, sorry, it wasn't 147,000, it was 14,000." Right? That's a joke. Like, just throw darts at a board full of numbers, and then wherever the dart lands, you just put that in the report. Because odds are, statistically speaking, you do better just throwing darts at a dartboard than they're doing on these numbers based on the revisions. So I think it's important to keep that in perspective. But the market doesn't keep that in perspective, right? The market tanked today. So let's just go take a look. All right. The Dow down 1.6%, or sorry, the S&P 500 down 1.6%. The NASDAQ down 2.2%, and the Russell down 2%. And at one point, it was down 3%. So these are big moves to the downside for no reason, really. And so as a result, you get all the Bitcoin miners tanking. Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for the super chat. Damn it, Tom, we need a rate cut now. So let's see how that poll is doing. Did the Fed blow it by not lowering interest rates yet this year? If you haven't voted, feel free to vote. And if you would be so kind as to smash the like button or the thumbs up button, it really does help the live stream out a lot in real time. Edmund said, "This is too depressing. I'm out. See you next week, next month, next year." Edmund, I don't think it is depressing. And if my tone sounds depressing, I must be coming across the wrong way, because I just got through saying I'm optimistic. I think this is a buying opportunity. I think it's a bunch of nonsense, but I think this is a buying opportunity, and we might get another buying opportunity, because when we look at the one-day chart, I think there's a super good chance we are going to test 112, which, I've been talking about for a while, and it's an obvious line. So, it's not rocket science. And that may provide even one more buying opportunity. I know a lot of you guys are done buying. I thought I was done buying, but I mean, they just keep, they can't help themselves. So So this poll is saying 76% think yes, the Fed blew it. So here's the other thing that I want to show you, because I think the Fed blew it. I think that is clear. But here's who else thinks the Fed blew it. The market. Let me show you what happened. This is the Fed Watch tool. This is the CME Fed Watch tool based on the futures. So there is now in September an 85.5% chance of a rate cut. Yesterday, that was 37%. 37. It's 85 today. So everybody just woke up and realized, what are we doing? But I'm going to show you, I took a screenshot to zoom in on it. I want to show you some other numbers. Just the broad scope of what changed here in one day from one data point. This is why the market's crazy. Okay, so here's yesterday, if you guys can see this. 1 day ago, and then it gives you 1 week ago, and then it gives you a month ago. 1 day ago, what's the highest probability on this chart? The highest probability 1 day ago is that we were going to get one. By the way, these are this is the December meeting. So this is all the way out to the end of the year. So as of yesterday, there was a, let's see, there was a 60% chance that we were going to get either 0 or 1 rate cut. And the highest probability was that we were going to get a 25 basis point rate cut between now and the end of the year. In 1 day, that switched from 60% to 13%. There's now, so instead of 0 or 1, with a small chance of 2 being priced in, we're now 2 rate cuts is at 41%. The most likely case scenario at 45.6% is 3 25 basis point rate cuts. So we went from 0 or 1 yesterday to 2 or 3 today. That's a massive jump from 1 data point. I want to get to Midway. Thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. The Russell 2000 had bad straight down price action all week. That is very true. Bitcoin was mostly just dragging lower by the tariff news. So that's the other thing that we have to talk about, because that was the other. It was a 1-2 punch today, and the tariffs are the other one, which is equally nonsensical. And Midway does go on to say, lowered by the tariff news, which is silly, which I agree with. I'm going to stick with being 52% IREN, 41% BTDR, and 7% CIFR. So that's what Midway is right now. And I think those are good picks. They're strong picks. I think there's a lot of, and this is why I'm saying, like, if your conviction hasn't changed, if the trajectory of the company hasn't changed, and they're going to put these on a deep, deep discount, I'm going to buy more of them. So, it's not financial advice, obviously, but that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did do this week. So to me, this is telling. In 1 day, we went from 0 or 1 to 3 or 4. Sorry, 2 or 3. I mean, that's a monumental shift in 1 day. So there's going to be 3 rate cuts. There's going to be more than 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. I've been pounding the table on this, and it's going to happen. And when we suffered the same consequences last year, longer for higher, if you remember. That was their little slogan. That's the slogan that replaced transient. Inflation's transient. Wrong. Longer for higher. So they did that to us last year, and then they gave us all of our rate points at the end of the year, our cuts, which was 2, really 3/4 of a point. And I think we're going to get more than 100 basis point cuts between now and the end of the year. And we need to, and it's just silly. It doesn't make any sense. were not in line with any other central bank on the face of this earth of any other, sizable economy. There's no line of reasoning. And I'll leave it at that. I'll say one more thing and I'll leave it at this. You can't, when inflation was actually at 9.1%, the Fed wasn't raising rates. They were saying it's transitory. We don't need to worry about inflation. When it was at a 40-year high. Now we're near our averages over the last 40 years. In fact, we're well under our average. And the Fed's saying we have to leave the rates the highest they've been, in 40 years because inflation's not happening. But guess what? It could happen. And until we see if it happens or not, well, you saw it happen last time. It got to 9.1% before you did anything about it. So you can't have it both ways, right? You can't say we have to err on the side of caution and raise rates to mitigate inflation when for a year you said, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. All these inflation numbers don't matter. They're transitory and they're going to go away. Well, what did people think was going to happen? Because here's the thing. Once inflation happens, it doesn't go, transitory never made sense because it doesn't go away unless you have deflation. So was he saying that he thought we were going to move into a sustained deflationary period of time to get back to the old prices? The inflation already happened. So he was wrong on that side. He's wrong on this side. And I will leave it at that. And you guys can, you guys have decided 75% to 25% that you think the Fed has blown it. So 3/4 of you. Thank you guys. We are at 46 likes. If you could do us a favor, if you just got here or if you have not yet, if you could smash the like button, it helps the stream out in real time. And after the rough day and week that we had, we need all the help we can get. Let's go back to the Bitcoin chart. And I want to talk about some news. We'll take a look at, I want to go through some news from the Bitcoin miners, and then we will take a look at the performance of the Bitcoin miners this week. The month of July is now over, so that's in the book, so we can see how they did in the month of July. The month of August obviously has started out on the wrong foot, right? It's August 1st, so that red board you're looking at, that's month to date for August, and it's not good. So we start behind the 8 ball in August. I predict that we're green in August by the end. So that includes Riot, which was down 17% today. I believe we'll end August in the green. So I think it's true. And that doesn't mean it won't get a little bit worse before it gets better, because I think, let's go to the 1-day chart and just look at what I'm talking about, because you can see, I mean, we hit a new all-time high on May 22nd at 112,000. And we were off to the races. Within days, we were up to $123,000. We never came back down and retested that line of support. We had, you'll see a very thin line. We had a thin line of support holding at around 115,000. And we broke through that today, right? We're going to close way below that. So that line didn't hold. There was a chance it could have held. It didn't hold. So, 112's in play. It wouldn't be crazy to go to 109. And let's say the thing, that we got to always admit, Bitcoin is infamous for 20% pullbacks, right? We got 5 of them in the year 2024, a year which Bitcoin was up 122%. So one of the great years for Bitcoin still saw 5 mini bear markets inside of that time frame. So if we were to play that out, you're talking about a move to 98,500. So I don't believe we're headed there. I don't think we're going to get that 20% correction. But if we do, nobody can sit here and say, well, this is just a shocking result because we did this 5 times last year. Now, the momentum is so significant and things are moving so fast that I do think we're likely to catch this line of support and bounce off of it. And if not at 112, then at 109. But I guess time will tell, right? We don't know. We know we're on the way down. You'll see. Look how much the daily RSI has reset. We were up here. We were up around 78, right? And now, as of right now, we're at 42. Actually, 42.7. So, you know, we're already under 50, which is neutral. You'll see I have a line at 41. This line has been very strong at 41. So, you know, sometimes we dip below it for one day, but that's about it. So I think maybe over the weekend we hit this or dip below this. We get to that 112, and then we've pretty much reset the daily RSI, and we're ready for the next bull run. You can see the MACD is looking the same way. We're a couple of weeks into a bearish crossover. We seem to be at the peak of the bottom of these red candles on the histogram. So this looks like just about time, maybe a few more days until a turnaround and then a run up. That's what this looks like, you know, from a technical standpoint in every way. And when you look at the news cycle, other than the two things, one of which we went into in depth, we got blindsided by the jobs report today. And as usual, the market overreacted as if any of those numbers mean anything at all. Because remember, not only did they revise the numbers down $250,000 250,000 jobs in this report this month, they still have their annual reconciliation to do where they could say, guess what? All that was wrong by 1 million jobs. So, you know, you got to take these numbers with a grain of salt. You got to pay attention to the big picture. There's a lot going on, and no one thing is dictating what's happening here. And so every number needs to be kept into perspective. Now, there's the tariff rhetoric is another big factor that is dragging the market down. And the market uses any excuse it can to run up when it's doing it and to run down when it can, right? Because the people make money on this volatility. So, you know, they're going to jump on an opportunity like this. There's some trade. It's August 1st. Some trades were put on hold. Others kicked in. Others were raised. So we haven't gotten to the end of this. I don't even want to call it a trade war. We have a worldwide renegotiation going on for trade. And I think it's healthy. It's scary, but it's not as scary as people are making it out to believe. If you look, there's a lot of deals that have already been struck. They're reasonable deals. Both sides, you know, are in a decent place, and they're just more fair and balanced deals. And that's where these seem to be landing. Not at, remember, the chart came out on April 2nd, and there was gigantic numbers all over the place, and it was going to be the end of the world. Well, none of that is playing out that way. And I mean, you got to remember who you're dealing with, right? If you, the bottom line is this Trump, the tariff thing is a Trump thing, and you can like Trump, you can hate Trump, you can love Trump. It doesn't matter. If you're investing, you better at least understand him. If you're not understanding what's happening, then you're burying your head in the sand and you're going to get killed investing. So when you saw that board, we talked about it that day. This is an opening gesture in what is going to be, you know, a long negotiation. Nobody thinks that those numbers that we saw on April 2nd were going to be the final tariffs on every country in the world. So country by country, deals are being made. And most countries, there's only 2 countries that really are representing a pretty big roadblock, one of which has cooled down dramatically, right? The situation with the US and China was off the rails for a while. That has calmed way down, but they're still not at an agreement. And for whatever reason, The United States and Canada, who's been, we've been friendly next door neighbors for, 100 years that I know about. Well, not firsthand, I'm not that old, but 50 plus, right? I mean, so I gotta believe, once again, this is a negotiation tool. Cooler heads will prevail. We already had the market already crashed on Canada tariffs several months ago, and then everything got revised. So now we're going through this again. So I'm viewing every one of these as a buying opportunity, because if you look at the bigger picture, let me go to, if you look at the market overall, right, this was the week that the tariffs were rolled out. Oh my, look at this disaster. This is almost to the day where we called the bottom. It was another V-shaped recovery, but the thing is, we didn't just get back to where we were. Yesterday, midday, we hit a new all-time high on the NASDAQ, on the S&P 500. Right, let's go take a look at that. Right, same scenario, right? So if you were selling here and panicking, which retail investors were, if you look at the numbers, there was a mass exodus by retail investors right here. And this is what they love. And this means that they won and we lost again. And we got to stop letting them beat us at this game. It's obvious now. So here we go again. Yesterday we're at a new all-time high. And now, this was a pretty big pullback for the S&P. From the peak of yesterday to the low of today, that was about 3%. So, and then let's look at the Qs. But remember, the peak of yesterday was a new all-time high. 3.5% for the Qs. So, which is the NASDAQ. And the Russell continues to lag. So we continue to be in this risk-off environment where if you look at the Russell, right, we retested a little bit of a line of support here today and bounced off of it, but we didn't get the V-shaped recovery new all-time high. Right? That's just, we're still not back to, this is 2021. Right? So whereas the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, gold, Bitcoin have all destroyed their 2021 highs, the small cap risk on Russell stocks are not even back to their highs from 2021. So I do believe there's a lot of upside here in the Russell. And I do believe, and by the way, they also announced not only weren't they going to lower interest rates, but they're going to continue quantitative tightening. So all that's going to get reversed. That's my opinion. That's my strong opinion. I see somebody asking Tom talk about Mara results. So Marathon and Riot have put their results, their quarterly results out. So I do want to go through both of those. So let's get to the Bitcoin miner news, because one of those was reacted to positively and the other one everybody viewed as a train wreck. And again, I don't get it. I don't get it. There's not a lot of surprises in these things. So let's just go. So the market liked what they saw from Marathon, right? It was doing well until everything started to tank. So it was outperforming based on in fact, after hours, it was way up on July 29th. And then the market pulled back completely, and Marathon pulled back a little bit with it, but I think it overperformed versus its peers. Revenue increased 64% year over year, $238 million of revenue in the quarter. That does not count the markup on their Bitcoin. That's revenue. Net income increased 505% year over year to, after taxes, $808 million. I'm going to show you their income statement. They had $200 million in taxes, so they made pre-tax, they made $1 billion, which is exactly what we've been saying on this channel for the last month. We knew, you can do the math. Everybody who's paying attention knew these guys were going to make $1 billion, and they did. Right? They have almost 50,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin was way up. You're going to see their cost per coin is getting in line. I like everything about this marathon report. Bitcoin holdings increased 170% year over year to 49,951 from 18,488. So Marathon is still the second largest corporate holder of Bitcoin out of every publicly traded company in the world, right? And we know Microstrategy, or now Strategy, is by far the largest. I will tell you, there's a group of companies, non-Bitcoin mining companies, that have started treasury policies that are building massive treasuries, and they're threatening to potentially pass Marathon. So we'll see what, how that progresses over time, and I'll show you that list in a bit too. But there's a lot of companies getting into the Bitcoin treasury business, and not in a little way. There's two companies going public. One of them has 30,000 Bitcoin, and the other one's going to have 43,500 Bitcoin. And I think both of them are going public via a SPAC. I can double check that. I don't think they're doing IPOs. So that SPAC math is always, you got to be very careful on that. So, but I thought, so let's go look at the statements themselves quickly. We can't obviously spend all day on this, but revenue, $238 million. I mean, that's their revenue numbers. They're at 57 exahash, right? And they're just mining a lot of Bitcoin, and the price of Bitcoin's gone through the roof. So it's not rocket science. Their revenue's way up. So purchased energy, third-party hosting, operating, and maintenance cost. I'm going to call those their direct costs. So that's like $130,000 on $238,000. Now, obviously, that does not include non-cash costs of depreciation. But, if you look at their direct energy costs per coin, you're at $110,000. George!
Hey, guys.
Welcome to the stream. You got
a half an hour drive took me an hour. Welcome to Atlanta.
You gotta stop me. I've been going off on the Fed.
What do you mean?
And the jobs report and the nonsense.
Oh, what was the jobs report? I didn't hear what the jobs report was.
It was a train wreck.
Oh, so it wasn't good?
They revised the last 2 months down 250,000 jobs.
Isn't it funny? One administration, or no, is that opposite, or I don't know.
No, it goes to the point that we've talked about forever on this channel.
Is there any good news out there right now, Tom?
No, there's not. But what's out there is all fabricated bad news. Yes, I'll tell you what the good news is. The chances of getting rate cuts just skyrocketed from yesterday to today. So isn't that what we actually all really think is going to help the economy and the stock market, particularly the risk on trades, is going to be lowering interest rates and quantitative easing versus quantitative tightening. And those things are all ahead of us, and the chances of that just went up drastically with this jobs report. Even though For me, I think the jobs reports are silly. You can see the market reacts to them heavily. And for those of you who weren't here when we took a look at this, I'm going to show you. This is through, so I took a snapshot of the December, what the futures are pricing in for the December meeting. Yesterday, this is 1 day ago, it was pricing in, a 60% chance of 0 or 1% rate cut. Or, sorry, 0 or 1 rate cut of 25 basis points. So that was yesterday. Today, what's the highest percentage? 3 rate cuts, 75 basis points. That's triple. So, and my guess is that they're still wrong. It's going to be more than that. So I think you can expect to see at least a point, if not more. And it'll be late.
It's interesting to hear that 1 point of interest represents $384 billion of interest to the United States.
Right. And that's a massive amount of money. And I'm gonna put this another way, because this is what people don't
understand. Just answer. Can you, maybe somebody in the chat could answer this for me so I understand? Why would we want to charge us more interest right now?
Right. So the Fed, here's Jerome Powell's answer. That's not my mandate. I have a dual mandate. I need to keep inflation in check, and I need to keep jobs healthy. And so he lives, he just is allowed to pretend to live in that vacuum.
$384 billion is inflationary.
Right. That's real money. It's a problem. And he knows it, and everybody knows it.
And that's just on the Federal Reserve. I wonder what the multiplying effect is, because everybody has to refinance. Most corporations, they take a 5 or 10-year loan out, and we're in a debt society. Everybody owes debt,
So to go to your point, what's the biggest debt we hold is our mortgages. Right? It's the vast majority of debt. So the interest rate in China is somewhere around 3%. Or not the interest rate, the mortgage rate. The mortgage rate in the United States is more like 6.5% or more. So that's just not 3% higher. It's 100% higher. It costs twice as much to qualify for a loan on a house at 6% as it does at 3%. So these unusually high, and they're not unusually high if you look at 100 years. But if you look at the last 45 or 50 years, we just haven't had these rates. If you look at the last 20 years, the prime rate has been the most common prime rate in the last 20 years is 0. So we're at 4.5 right now versus the most common being 0. So these are extremely elevated interest rates, and the ripple effects of this haven't even started yet. So they need to fix this, and by the time they figure out what has been obvious to anybody looking for years, it's time to lower interest rates, and not by a little bit. That's what I have to say about that.
Well, I mean, the good news is this has got to be happening sooner than later. I mean, I got to think, do you think we can double the crypto market before the end of the year?
Yeah, I think we're still set up for the same big bull run by the end of the year that I've been expecting. So I started the stream by saying today was a bad day. Every Bitcoin miner was red or very red. Bitcoin was way down. We're $10,000 off of our high from, less than a month ago. With all of that said, I think this is a very natural pullback. And these are healthy. The daily RSI has done a massive reset, giving us a lot of room to the upside to run. So everything looks to me like we're in the bottoming out process. It could take 2 days. It could take 5 days, but I think we're going to bottom out and then start to race again. So that's...
What was the fear? Did you look at the fear and greed?
Let's go look at the fear and greed index. Good question, George.
Where's in retrograde?
So let me refresh. So we're still at 65 on the crypto fear and greed index. We're still in greed, right? We were higher. If we look at the chart, look at the 3 month.
I think that will change, by the way. I think we'll be out of it by the refresh today.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to refresh in 2 hours and 47 minutes. And you're right. It's going to drop a bunch.
Yeah.
So for sure. Let's see the market, the overall market. So that's still at 74. So while everybody panicked today, and again, those none of today's actions reflected in these numbers. So, boom. So this just updated. So I just refreshing it. It went from 74 to 50. So this is the overall market fear and greed index now.
I would say that's very, because there's two schools of thoughts right now, right? Armageddon's coming and everything's falling apart, or we're going to go to the moon. There's no in between.
That's true. We're definitely living in two extreme, almost like every other topic in existence right now. We have two extreme positions.
That's an interesting one.
I see a lot of people talking about management's compensation in the Bitcoin mining companies. And I just think that is retail investors look at that and they go, well, that's not fair. You know, that guy's making $20 million. And I get it. But institutions don't care. They couldn't possibly care less because the C-suite on big companies are making 10 times this or 100 times this or 1,000 times this. So it doesn't, are they making more maybe than we would like to see them make? And there are a few companies that are keeping their compensation under control. The first thing I'll say is it's predominantly stock compensation, which incentivizes management for the company's stock to improve. So it's aligning their interests with my interests as a shareholder. And I'm not worried about, I know I don't want to be cavalier, but it's a couple of bucks. It's not impacting their profitability. And so I don't worry. And that's probably a very unpopular opinion. I'm sure that a lot of you disagree with that, but it's just the reality. I mean, look at a guy like Elon Musk, right? He's still arguing over his $58 billion compensation package that they're trying to take away from him. And that was for 1 year. So when you see these numbers that we're talking about, they're rounding errors in the big picture. Doesn't mean you can't be frustrated about it and that they're not too high, because they probably are too high. But again, as long as they're mostly stock, then our mission is still aligned. Right? They want the stock to do well. We want the stock to do well. What do you think, George?
I think the Fed really got us. I think there really is two schools of thoughts out there. And I think that there is, the invisible hand trying to make us get destroyed right now. So it makes Trump look bad. And then the other invisible hand trying to make things take off. And so everybody looks good. And remember, when the stock market's down, fear goes through the roof, which doesn't make any sense because you're supposed to feel bad for rich people because only rich people are in the stock market.
You know what I mean? That's the bulk of the money, is the corporate money, retirement money, and rich people.
So, Dave, you bring up an interesting point. Dave Grow was saying, or is it Grow? He was saying that who's going to buy crypto?
right.
Nobody has any money.
Yeah, that's
And
why. Go ahead.
Go
You
ahead.
say. And then I want to
Yeah,
get to
and I
Midway.
don't
I'll
think
get to you in a
that's-
second, Midway.
I don't
Let George.
really think that's the case. I think there's still this $10 trillion sitting on the sidelines waiting for things to happen in crypto that still, I mean, we're a lot closer than we were, but we still haven't moved to the level that we still need to. There's still major hurdles in front of us that we have to get over.
Yeah, this is still, it's hard to conceive since, you know, Bitcoin's gone from pennies to $113,000, but we're still in very, very early days on this whole situation. I want to get to Midway. Thank you for being a member. Thanks for the super chat. And Midway is saying,
nice, Dave.
We might be in the early stages of a new extended cycle, super cycle type of thing for Bitcoin. But most people are afraid to say that because the super cycle people were totally wrong in 2021. I'm not afraid to say it, Midway, and thank you for bringing it up. I think we're in a super cycle. I did not think that in 2021. I did think, I did get fooled. I will admit that. I thought there was more upside. I didn't think the run was over, but I didn't think we were in a super cycle. I didn't think there was any realistic chance of that. We had no adoption, and there was all types of potential things hanging over cryptocurrency and Bitcoin's head. But here's the thing. All of those big, you name the 5 biggest, fear factors for Bitcoin, they're all gone. Adoption, and I'm going to get to some articles, adoption is happening at a rate that is stunning to me. And there's still so much left that I just don't think, there's no reason for the momentum to run out. It's still only just picking up. And most of the pools of money, we talk about, 10 trillion here, 10 trillion there. I'll give you an example. Charles Schwab, which a lot of people don't realize, Charles Schwab is really a peer of BlackRock and Vanguard. They have $10.8 trillion under management. So, those 3 companies, in 4th place is Fidelity with less than 5 trillion, to put it in perspective. So those 3 companies are monsters. Well, Charles Schwab just last week said, we're getting in the crypto game. We're going to be a crypto exchange, and we want to dominate the crypto space. Well, they got almost $11 trillion behind them. Now, obviously, that's not all going into crypto, but what if 5% of it does? Bitcoin's going to double, right? So and that's just one pool of $10 trillion.
Bitcoin will double with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So there's only good, like this bad news today. We're sitting here talking about bad news. We had a bad jobs report. We're worried about tariffs. Well, we've been worried about tariffs all year. Hasn't shown up in any of the inflation numbers. And if you were worried about them 3 months ago, we've resolved half the tariff issues at this point. So we're halfway through whatever pain is coming. And it really wasn't a big deal. So I think those are all straw man arguments. Those are all short-term fake news reasons to drive the market down and, liquidate longs. The longs got massively liquidated, and someone's on the other side of that trade minting money.
Well, I mean, I'm going to I am looking for money under my mattress to put it into crypto right now, just so you guys know. And this seems like a gift to me, especially in the alt season, which has not really started yet. It looked like it was a fake launch. I didn't think it was going to get here until now, anyways. Until August. I've always been saying August, and now it looks like it might even be a little later than that.
Well,
but there's just some opportunities here that I think are once in a lifetime opportunities. And that's how I look at it. It's been a gift because I would not be in shock to see XRP at like $6 in the run. You know, I just think that it's going there. I'm sorry. You know, like Ethereum, I think that's going to double. There's just nothing in this, you know, these top, you know, 25 coins that I'm scared of. Maybe Shiba.
Yeah, right. And then, you know, the risk reward gets better and better the further you go down the line, but you know, you got to take that risk with the reward.
So I'm probably up right now altogether, I don't know, 125% altogether. If I had to give you a number, okay, 125%. I can tell you that I still expect to 10x from here, where I'm at, of being up 125%. And I'm thinking that 10x is coming before the end of this year. And I'm in a lot of crazy altcoins, guys. There's a lot of, you know, I mean, because like I just got into an altcoin, I guess I could tell you, it's called React. And the market cap's like nothing. Let's see what the market cap is.
While you're doing that, Sourmelon Gaming just pointed out, and I want to point out Katie's comment, which I think we all should remember every day. Here's some good news. You all woke up this morning. Some people didn't get that. So we'll just
know if that's good news or not.
It's good news.
I've never not woken up.
I'm grateful to be alive. So thank you, Katie, for a little wisdom and perspective.
It just doesn't really have a market cap. It has a volume, but I don't know why it doesn't have a market cap. But it's really tiny. I mean, the volume is, okay, don't laugh, guys, is $5,000.
Yeah, but those are the ones that can 200x.
Yeah, and I expect this thing to go, you know, to do that, by the way.
Or it's going to go to zero. It's going to, you know, one or the other.
Right. And I'm not like mortgaging my house, you know.
Yeah, it's
so 10xk XRP. I love XRP, first of all, and I have stacked high and deep on XRP. And I can tell you this, people, I would read. Oh yeah, hey, they got the Bank of Canada. Oh yeah, hey, they got the Bank of Congo. Hey, they got the Bank of England. You know what I mean? And it's just people don't realize how deep XRP is in the world. It's just not deep in the United States. I still think that is going to have, you know, some point in time in the next, I think the next month, we're going to see some nice turns in XRP. Now, if it goes to 10 grand, I would be more than happy. I don't know if it's going to, but I mean.
Well, you mentioned a number, George, and just so you know, I put up an article in the background. XRP pattern still points to $6 target. So that's the exact number you were just talking about.
Yeah. Well, I have a number for XRP that if a few things could happen this year. And I don't say them because I don't want people to think I'm an absolute lunatic, but there is a number that I think it could go to this year. But a few things have to happen for that to go there.
I'm just going
to. Here's the thing. And then we haven't even talked about this. When I watch Scott Bassett, does anybody know who that is? Scott Bassett. I watch this guy talk, and when he says, we are going to tokenize everything, he's the federal trade, U.S. trade, what is he? The U.S. Trade Department head, right?
You're killing it today. If I can find an article, I got something on that too.
Right. So this guy is saying, listen, we're tokenizing everything. And I believe that's going to be tokenized off of the XRP network, personally. So, you know, there's just so much that's going to come out. And I think it all comes out before July 4th of 2026. I think Trump has such an ego that he's going to do everything in his power to have an economy going through the roof come the 250th anniversary. Love him, hate him. I just tell you one thing, we can all agree he's got a big ego. And that man's going to do everything he can to make sure that we have the country is humming come that 250th anniversary.
So to follow up on what you said, George, here's an article from today. Tokenization of real-world assets is gaining momentum, says Bank of America. So they're a $500 billion market cap bank. Discussions with investors show a growing focus on the tokenization of real-world assets, including stocks, bonds, and real estate. So this concept that, you know, for a while, everybody was hyped about it, and then it turned into something that everybody was laughing at. But guess what? The Bank of America is not laughing. And like I said, they're one of the largest financial institutions in the world. Tokenization of real-world assets is gaining traction, according to a report from the Bank of America. The bank said it is a multi-year journey, so understood. You know, this isn't going to happen overnight, but that's more evidence of, you know, what we're calling a super cycle. These types of momentum things are going to happen over years, even as people start to, you know, as other large pools of money start to open up and invest in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in specific. They're not going to start at the finish line, right? They're going to put 1% in, and they're going to put a little more in, and then they're going to put a little more in, and then et cetera, until, you know, suddenly now, you know, it's been a rule of thumb for 100 years, maybe a lot longer than that for all I know. Oh, you should have 10% of your assets in gold. Well, I think you're going to see those types of rules of thumb with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So, you know, we're at less than 0.1% of the assets. So that's 100 times the amount of money I would still expect to come into this space than what is in there right now.
Yeah, and Gorilla, I do not care for XRP the way it works. You need to understand something. I don't care for XRP, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to own a whole bunch of it and make a lot of money on it. I don't like how everything's centralized. And I think did the Swift deal go through, Tom?
I don't know.
They bought Swift for like $32 billion or something like that. That happened on Wednesday or something. Which is so funny to see the price reaction that we currently have. It's just amazing. What you're seeing is this is all because of the Fed. No other reason except because of the Fed. And basically what I really believe is going on, I don't even know if I should say this, but I think there's people that don't want Trump to do well. Trump represents the middle class. And I know we can argue about that, but in the elite's mind, that's who he represents.
Well, we know one person who doesn't like him, and that's Jerome Powell.
Yeah, oh yeah.
By the way, there were 2 dissenting votes in Wednesday's Fed meeting that thought we should have lowered rates on Wednesday. So the tide is already turning. And then this jobs report hits, and all of a sudden you can see it's a game changer.
Just, you know, Caesar salad, that came up, and I wanted everybody to see what you said about me, because God bless you, brother.
I don't see it.
Oh. You can always change the channel. I don't care. What I find in life is this. You're a dumbass, and then you're even a bigger dumbass when you're proven right. See, and Larry says I'm a dumbass too, Larry. You're right, George. That's his way of saying it, though. And this is the thing. This is what, you know, who knows who this Mr. Salad, I've never seen him before. Maybe he's been here before or not. I don't know. But what's great about that is this proves a point. When you're right, you have 400 people out there working for a hedge fund that's deep into the altcoins that are going to say things to make it seem like that's the consensus. That's how they play this, guys. That's how they play it in stock market. That's how they play it in anything where you can make money. I mean, the great example is when you go and you are doing Vegas and you're betting an NFL game. You go and you tell people what's going to happen, then that's, you know, what we're. See, Larry, you're right. Isn't that funny? There's great things, Salad. Trump doesn't represent the middle class, not by policy, right? You see, we don't do political stuff. I'm not trying to do political. My whole thing was love him or hate him. I'm not giving you my opinion on him. I'm just telling you how the elites look at Trump. I said the elites look at Trump as for the middle class. And I can give you an endless display of what I mean.
It's about looking at the big picture and reading the room, and everybody's going to have a different opinion on politics, and it doesn't matter. You know, in the United States, half the time the Democrats are in charge and half the time the Republicans are in charge. That's just how it's worked out. And, you know, you don't stop existing when your party isn't in charge. And, you know, you still need to understand who is in charge, what they believe in. I mean, the first thing about Trump is he's the most pro-Bitcoin. I mean, he's ultra pro-Bitcoin. And it's not lip service either, because his company just bought $2 billion of Bitcoin. So that's putting your money where your mouth is. There was an article the other day, I think I read to the members. It said the old rule used to be don't fight the Fed. Now it's don't fight the president, right? And I'm going to find another article right now because it's going to right what we're talking about. Just a second.
So I'm throwing up a poll, guys. Let's see what you guys think. I'm going to do a quick one here, and then I'll go to another one. Is Bitcoin going to 100K and say in the next 30 days?
Good poll. Good
yes
poll.
Or no?
Participate in the poll. If you could do us a favor, we're at 70 likes. If you could hit the like button, that would be much appreciated. The thumbs up, the like. I'm talking about. So I want to show you this article. U.S. Bitcoin reserve coming. Bo Hines says, quote, people will be very pleased. Two of President Donald Trump's leading officials on crypto, Bo Hines and Treasury's Tyler Williams, gave CoinDesk an inside take on their new report. So Hines said that the infrastructure work is underway for the Bitcoin reserve, and those waiting for it should be, quote, very pleased. So I think we're looking at a short-term scenario where they're going to start filling, the federal government is going to start building out a Bitcoin reserve, like we have a reserve for oil and gold and other things that are now deemed too valuable not to participate in and not to have a supply of. President Donald Trump's crypto working group finally, and again, it doesn't matter if you like this person or hate them. If you don't know what's going on, then you're just investing on ignorance, which makes no sense. So President Donald Trump's crypto working group finally issued its massive report and its pages of the U.S. policy recommendations, and two of the people behind the effort told CoinDesk that decentralized finance protocols should fare just fine in the administration's version of the U.S. sector. So this is another area of adoption. The federal governments all around the world are starting to adopt Bitcoin. Obviously, we have a Bitcoin reserve that's empty right now, so we need to start filling it up. But when that starts happening, Texas became the first state. They bought $10 million of Bitcoin and they put it into Treasury and they're holding it. So, you know, a couple of other states have already voted that they're going to do the same thing. You've got the federal government that's on the verge of doing the same thing. It's adoption everywhere you look, and it's getting rolled out one piece at a time. And there's just doesn't seem to me that there's an end to it. So that's why when we have a couple of days of, if you weigh that bad news, one bad job report to, hey, there's, you know, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars coming into this space over the next 10 years, I feel like there's your argument for a super cycle. And by the way, just as a counterpoint, Metaplanet, thanks for being a member, saying, I'll only believe in a super cycle if the Bitcoin dominance doesn't crash. Here's what I would warn everybody. Alt season is vicious. So what happens is you're going to see Bitcoin go up in price, but the Bitcoin dominance go down because the altcoins move altogether very quickly. So you're going to see the Bitcoin dominance go down. But I think you're going to see it go right back up, you know, after we get through alt season. And I don't think you're going to see Bitcoin crash. Bitcoin dominance has never gone down because of Bitcoin crashing worse than the altcoins. It goes down because the altcoins have a vicious run up when they run. So I would just bear that in mind. Bitcoin dominance is very high right now. It's likely to pull back from where it is, and it can still keep moving forward in that environment because, you know, you've got a lot of these altcoins. You got to just talk about Ethereum. And I'm on record. I'm not a big fan of Ethereum. I'm just take that with a grain of salt. For those of you who have done a deep dive and you have conviction, then you probably know better than I do. But I'm going to show you two articles. Ethereum, which is where at like $3,600 right now. You got Tom Lee predicting Ethereum is going to hit $15,000. Okay, well, you go.
This cycle?
I think this year he's talking about.
Whoa.
Yeah, 10 to 15,000 by the end of this year. Now, he's an ultra bull. I will grant you that. But here's a separate article. ETH going to 16K in this cycle. Analyst explains why this could happen. Crypto analyst Edwards says Ether could surge to $15,000 to $16,000 this cycle, citing bullish technical patterns, ETF inflows, which, by the way, exploded. The ETFs had a 2-week run that ended last week where they brought in more money in those 2 weeks than they did in the entire year they existed before that. So, I mean, it reached a critical mass. The ETF inflows are huge and rising institutional demand. So at the time this article was written yesterday, ETH was at 3,800. It's pulled back from there. So if you could pull a 3,600 to 15,000, yeah, Bitcoin's not going to keep up with that. Bitcoin's not going to 800,000 in this year or this cycle. So that's why the dominance goes down. You could still have Bitcoin go to 250,000 and have its dominance go down. So I would just watch out for that relationship with what these other coins around it are doing. And there's a lot of people that are very bullish on not just Bitcoin. There's 6 or 8 coins now that seem to be getting a lot of adoption, and companies are starting to put into treasury and build their business model around.
I'm going to do this. Majority of people do not think Bitcoin's going to hit 100K in the next 30 days.
All right.
74% say no. I'm real interested to see what everybody thinks we're going to be. I'm going to close this any second now. Is what we're going to be by the end of the year. I'm seeing some people think 130, 150 for Bitcoin. Well, one of the things that you know we have to do, and maybe you guys will disagree with this, but I think we have to get prices down lower. And I think, and what I mean by that is I think goods and services, we need those prices to come down. We need them to come down between 15 and 20%, which no one likes to talk about that in capitalism, but we need that to come down. Because if that comes down, that makes everybody happier.
Well, and the number one way for that to happen is for oil to have a significant pullback.
But the number two is interest rates.
Absolutely.
You know? And that's why, that's the whole reason we want interest rates to come down, because having a contraction is like the worst thing, and you need to get it quick, because we just had a situation where inflation was the only thing that really moved GNP all of the last 4 years.
Kate's saying 22 weeks left in the year, 150,000 Bitcoin will have to go up $1,682 a week on the average. Doable. Yeah, I think that's very doable. Did you end the poll? Can you do the next one?
Yep, I'm doing the next one now. I'm trying to keep it in tight. I just want to see what you guys are thinking.
Midway saying things will get much easier for the Bitcoin mining stocks when Bitcoin actually breaks out for real, with at least some momentum higher for a change. Yeah, we ran up, and by the way, I'm going to go to the numbers because we need to acknowledge the numbers. This week was bad, but this is 1 week. Where'd my chart go?
What time you get XP is by giving money. I didn't know that.
Oh, my chart got closed. I got to open it up and do it again because that's key. All right, so I'm just going to do that for a second in the background here while we're talking.
It'd be great to see 150. I did something I didn't think I'd ever do, guys. I collateralized Bitcoin. I won't say it any other way. Which is amazing to see what you can do. It's so cool. So I don't take any capital gains on my Bitcoin. I just use them to give myself the money and then go invest it into other things. Like I build houses. And so and I'm building houses now. And I'm doing it with my own money now, which is interesting.
Out of that, we're not doing that yet. And then I'm just going to take a minute and find our chart to see what everything did this week, because I had that already and I must have accidentally closed it. Because I more want to really take a look at what's gone on the last 100 days, because everybody feels like we're in the middle of a nightmare here for the cryptocurrency Bitcoin miners, but we're not. We've had a strong run, and this is a natural pullback. things don't go in a straight line. And if there's one thing we've said tens of thousands of times is there is volatility in this area of the market. It's one of the highest volatility areas. If you don't like volatility, if you can't stomach volatility, these are horrible investments for you. And that's just the way. Not everybody's built for these. You know, there's a lot of different ways to make money investing. But if you don't like massive volatility, you're going to get it with cryptocurrency, and you're getting it even worse with the Bitcoin miners, which are kind of a derivative product off of chart ready to bring in. Okay. So let's talk the numbers, right? Because we haven't really gone through the numbers. This week was awful. Bitcoin, these switched around, so let me fix them. Okay, Bitcoin was down 3% this week, so that is not a catastrophe by any stretch of the imagination. But the Bitcoin miners, some of them had a very bad week. Riot was down 24% this week. Now, almost 18% of that was today. CIFR down 24%. BTDR down 17%. IREN's down 13%. But when you see what it's doing year to date, a little 13% pullback, you're gonna say, well, I get it. I see what's going on. CleanSpark down 12, Hive down 11, Marathon down 10, Cores 8, Wolf 8, Bitfarms down 6, and Hut's the best performer out of all of them, down 3%. And they're not really even doing Bitcoin mining anymore. Their subsidiary is, which is getting spun off. So this is a bad week. This week looks really bad. But I want to go to the month we just ended. Today's August 1st. We just ended July. So even in light of this was July. So Bitcoin's up 5% in July. That's a win. The vast majority of the Bitcoin miners were up double, triple, or quadruple what Bitcoin was up. Bitfarms was up 50% in July. So I had talked at the end of June about maybe getting out of my Bitfarms position, and I reconsidered that, and we talked about it on the members only stream that no, I don't. It's not the right time. I'm not going to sell at the bottom. And sure enough, it took off. So up 50% in the month of July. But look, Hive up 19, Riot up 19, TerraWolf up 18, CIFR 14. I mean, these are all good numbers. CleanSpark was underperformed. It's only up 3% versus Bitcoin. But wait till you go to year to date, because CleanSpark is doing just fine. Marathon only up 3%. That underperformed. A part of that is because of this. They raised $950 million of convertible debt. So the stock crashed that day. So even with that crash, Marathon was still green on the month. Core Scientific is a different story. They are being bought out. So I'll just show you. In June, Core Scientific was up 60% on speculation that they were going to be bought out. Well, the market overshot a little bit. And when they found the real numbers, it self-corrected, and that meant a 21% move to the downside. And this is not really a Bitcoin mining stock anymore. They've sold themselves to CoreWeave, which is high-performance computing, AI, etc. So that being an outlier, July was a great month. And then June was even better. IREN was up 74% in June. Core 60%. CIFR 53%. Riot 40%. So yeah, Riot had a bad day today, but like it's been on fire for a long time. And then let's go to year to date. This is year to date considering, remember, everything got wrecked today. IREN's up 57%. Bitcoin's up 21% year to date. So the reality is, even with this pullback, and Bitcoin's $10,000 off of its previous all-time high, Bitcoin's still up 21% on the year. IREN's up 57%. That's what we expect out of our Bitcoin miners. This chart's not right until most of them look like that. So IREN ran out first. CleanSpark, which had a rough week, still up 13% on the year. Riot's up 8% on the year. Riot's up 8% on the year, and they're down 17 or 18% today. So they're still up on the year as a result of that. CIFR's still up on the year. HUT's a little bit red. At one point, HUT was green and Marathon was green. They've had a little bit of a pullback, but I'm going to go back in time to a time where this chart looked like a nightmare. And I said, I think that almost every single stock on this chart will end the year green. And that is back in the first week of April when it was gloom and doom. Friday, April 4th was 2 days after Tariff Day, and everybody was in a full-blown panic. This was the year-to-date through April 4th. The Bitcoin mining stocks were down between, CleanSpark was down 21%. If I take that as an outlier, between 30 and 63%. And a lot here around 50%. I mean, half of these stocks were down 50%-ish or more. So if you looked at this on April 4th, it looked like this year was going to be an absolute total disaster. Well, now here we are a little bit later, and it looks like this, even after we just got wrecked today. So I think it's important to keep in perspective the last 100 days. I mean, this is July was good. June was good. May was good. That's 90 days. So that's anywhere from good to great months in a row. So are we getting a little pullback at the beginning of August? I think this is a perfect fake out. Oh, August is going to, now here it is. Everyone's going to think August is a nightmare. I got to run for the hills. Well, you're going to sell low again. And that doesn't mean it won't go lower, right? Because we haven't hit 112. We haven't retested even the first line of support. So we'll see where we catch ourselves at support. But I think that the 1 day is just, if we go back to the 1 day, right? We still have, we've never gone back and retested this high we hit back in May. So that's unusual. It's typical to retest these lines of support. So it looks like maybe we're going to do it. By the way, we're back to 114,000. So are we going to get down to 112? I think that's super likely. That went from, 50-50 on Tuesday to now breaking below this kind of weak line of support here. I think it looks, this looks like an inevitable run down to testing some lower numbers. We'll see how low we go. But, we're still very close to our all-time high. This entire pullback has only been 7.5%. I mean, in terms of Bitcoin, that's nothing. Remember, 20%, 5 or more 20% pullbacks last year. So I'm not sure we're going to get those this year, but we're going to get pullbacks. We're going to get 7% pullbacks. We're going to get 10% pullbacks. And we might get, historically speaking, odds are we're going to get a 20% pullback at some point this year. I don't think it's time yet, just based on where things are at. But you can see what I'm looking at is this gigantic reset on the daily RSI, right? We were overbought, and that's always a dangerous time. But particularly with the last 2 days action, we're now under 50, which is neutral. I have a pretty strong line of support at 41 on the daily RSI that we really very rarely spend more than 1 or 2 days under this line. This is kind of a floor, and this is at 41.23, and we're at 43.8 right now. So, I mean, we're 1 day away from maybe bouncing off of that line. So that's why I say, like, I don't think it's time to panic. Now, maybe they'll keep the pressure on. Maybe 112 won't hold and we'll test 109. If 109 doesn't hold, you know, I think really there's some mini lines here, but I think, you know, 100 is in play if 109 doesn't hold. I don't think we're going there. But, you know, if we're looking at the chart, that certainly wouldn't be an unusual move for Bitcoin. How's the poll going, George?
I changed the poll, Tom. I did for alt season, end of month August, end of month September, end of the year this year, or spring of next year.
So most people think end of September. August and September. So sooner than later was the majority going here. Oh, we're at 88 likes. We're at 88 likes, everybody. If you can help us get to 100, that is our goal live. We've only ever failed to achieve that 2 times, and it was 2 weeks in a row. And by the way, right after those 2 weeks, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners went on fire. So, for whatever that's worth. All right, so more stuff. I want to talk about Hive. So this was Hive's most recent investor presentation, and this was in May. And they were at 11 exahash. And they were saying, we're going to get to 25 exahash by the end of the year. Now, that seemed like an extremely lofty goal. They came into the year, I think, at 6. So they've already almost doubled their exahash. Hive is under the radar. I think everybody's missing Hive. So, again, this is their May presentation. Since they put this presentation out in May, they put a press release out to say they're now at 12 exahash. Then last week, they put a press release out to say we're now at 13 exahash. And now, a couple of days ago, they put a press release out that says we're now at 14 exahash. So they are doing what they said they were going to do. And the rest of what they said they were going to do, so, you know, this is August 1st. They have targeted 18 exahash by the end of August. So they're looking to go from 11 to 18 exahash in 2 months. And this stock isn't running. It's crazy. So, you know, do your own due diligence. You got to have your own conviction because they can torture you, right? This stock's moving in the wrong direction when, in my opinion, it should be skyrocketing. So that, you know, that trend could continue. They could keep torturing us. But ultimately, I think every stock eventually finds its value. And Hive is a company that's had a massive, massive turnaround. And by the way, 18 by the end of August, 18 exahash, and what was it, 25 by the end of the year. So they're going to go from 6 to 25 exahash this year. Their fleet efficiency is dramatically better than it was, and it's going to continue to improve as they put these newer and newer machines in. So I just want to keep this on people's radar, take it for what it's worth, but I think that's a pretty big deal. And another thing, as we're just looking at the Bitcoin miners, Bitfarms announces, this came out in the middle of the week, I think actually Tuesday. Bitfarms announces second principal executive office in New York City and initiates conversion to US GAAP. So those of you who have been here for a while or ever have probably heard George and or myself pounding the table that Bitfarms needs to become a US company. It will be a game changer for them. Well, this to me was the absolute final step on the path to becoming, instead of a Canadian company, a US based company. It just, and why you go, why, who cares? Because access to capital as a US company is exponential, right? It's just a reality. The two largest exchanges in the world are both in the United States, and it's not even close. So the money that becomes available that won't necessarily go into, Bitfarms has two strikes against it. It's not a US company and it's under $5. Well, one of those they can change in a heartbeat by just saying so. And I think this was the
three things, Tom.
Three, go ahead.
You most important one. They're not reporting. They're not going to go any further with Bitcoin mining.
They have stopped their monthly reporting
so much. It's not even funny. Even if that was the case, they didn't need to say anything. They could have kept it the way it was going. And then, oh my God, they're going to miss out on so much upside now. It's just so sad.
I think they're going to, I'm actually feeling like, I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I'm a big critic of the fact that they stopped putting out their monthly operational report. I don't get it. There's 5 Bitcoin miners in the last 5 months that have just decided we're not putting out a monthly report anymore. I think that's a bad decision, unless for a couple of them, it wasn't a bad decision because they're getting out of Bitcoin. So, you know, nothing to report.
Yeah, but that's the look that it looks for Bitfarms too.
I agree. By leaving us in the dark, we have to wait till the quarterly reports to see what they're doing. But the reality is they're still probably the 5th largest Bitcoin miner. They were at 20 exahash when they stopped reporting. So I don't think anybody's caught them. And yet they leave us in the dark. So that's, I think that's I agree with you, George. That's a really bad decision.
To me, Bitfarms look like they're grasping at straws. And I think, first of all, they're a bunch of bunch of idiots over there. I mean, Tom, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off. I mean,
speak your mind.
I cannot even say the things I want to say because I don't know if you were coming to the United States, why would you go and say you're not going to actively go after increasing your exahash? If that was even in your thought process, because Trump is already talking about making some type of something with Bitcoin. Like we want to be a dominant, person that is, mining Bitcoin. And so he's already talking about that. So why would you go and cut your nose to spite your face or however that goes?
Yeah, that's right.
Why would you do that? I can't even comprehend it. It's like, so that means, Tom, that when they made that decision, they didn't make the decision to go to the United States for domicile. So that's even scarier to me than anything. So they're grasping at straws.
What if
this is not a well thought out plan?
It's very discombobulated. It's very reactionary. This is what investors didn't like but I think the tides have turned a little bit. And what investors really hate, number one, a lack of disclosure. So by not reporting monthly anymore, we now know less than we used to. So uncertainty, bad. Number two, they've been on their heels. They've been reacting to bad things that happened to them. And as a result, they've had to change their business model fairly substantially. Now, there was an ill-advised hostile takeover attempt by Riot. And I say ill-advised because Riot's going to sell all 90 million of those shares at a loss. They've already sold half of them. And, I think very quickly they'll be done with the rest and they will have lost a massive amount of time, effort, energy, and money trying to affect what Bitfarms is doing. Riot needs to worry about what Riot's doing. They just dropped 17% today. They got to keep their eye on their own operations. So that failed attempt destroyed Bitfarms and their stock. And they didn't, I don't know what they needed to do at that moment, but whatever it was, they didn't do it because it resulted in their stock tanking. And because their stock tanked, and I mean tanked, they were unable to secure any capital, and they need capital to grow their exahash. So they're not going to be doing an at the market offering at 70 cents a share, right? It's not feasible. So by those series of events, you know, and again, good management doesn't let that happen to them. I don't know how they let this happen to them, and it's a bad spot.
Have they announced a deal with any AI or any data storage, anything?
They have not announced a big deal with anybody yet. And, you know, in my opinion, they're behind most of the other Bitcoin miners in this space.
So grasping at straws, it's going below $1.
You might be right. We'll see. I think that the next announcement is that they're a US company. And then if they're really smart, they'll start reporting their Bitcoin again.
Yeah. You have an inexperienced board still today sitting over there at Bitfarms, you know, and you have an inexperienced CEO sitting over there at Bitfarms, and you have an owner that is, what would be the word that you'd want to use about him? Confrontational?
I will.
I mean, there's somebody, you can't go through 6 CEOs in 2 years without a problem, Tom. Or 5, whatever it was. It's just way too many.
It's a bad look. There's no question. And the way they transitioned out of the last one was a very bad look.
What is funny is they blew an opportunity. I mean, absolutely blew an opportunity because they had a company that was already in the United States domiciled.
Right, by buying Stronghold. That was
absolutely screwed.
Right.
I mean, we're talking stupid money.
As a part of that consolidation, they could have changed their domicile then. That's what I thought was going to happen. Both you and I both, George, I think thought that's what they were going to do at that point. And that might have staved off the entire hostile takeover.
And that would have saved, I don't know, probably close to 25 million, 20 at least. And it just shows you what happens when you have piss poor leadership. And listen.
Well, it starts at the top. There's no doubt.
Right. And this is what so Ben's not really the CEO. Ben is this play CEO, and the other guy's still running the company.
You think Ben's a figurehead and he's been put out there to take the heat?
And I have no problem with Ben. I like Ben, but it's just, this is, you know, you can't work for somebody with your one hand tied behind your back.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. We're going to have to wait. I think I got this chart up.
Yeah, old Jock was saying the exact same thing about Stronghold at the time. Anybody that had a freaking brain was saying that, except the stupid idiot at Bitfarm. Listen, if you don't like me, and I understand, I don't like myself, and I cry at night when I go to sleep, but I'm not that stupid idiot that did this deal with Bitfarms. I mean, I'm sorry. Anybody could tell you, like, in the Bitcoin industry, this goes down as one of the dumbest things that's ever been done. They took a company that was losing money, bought it, now they're losing that money, and they don't have they at that point in time when they bought it, they talked about going to 25 exahash?
They were talking about their original plan was get to 20 exahash by the end of last year and 35 exahash by the end of this year. But again, their stock going from $4 to 68 cents made that plan an impossibility. So they were forced to do something different. Now, you could say it's their fault, and maybe it is, but that's what happened.
Whoever the investment person is, like, you know how they have like a, what are they called? Like a consultant that says, oh, you should do this, this, and this. Well, I bet you they just recently switched, by the way, if I was a betting man.
Old Jack, and I ain't the sharpest tool in the box. Well, you've been with us for a while, old Jack. Don't you can't fool us. We know.
No, it's just sad because we all knew it. It's like, can't you guys take an hour of your day and watch this show and learn? And and Ben's really good at operations. He's got that down. And so now you took somebody who was good at operations and now he's not even going to be able to do it. It's just crazy.
Right. I think Ben was the best operator out there in the business. So, when that was his job, he was hitting a grand slam home run at it. I suspect he still has his hands in that quite a bit, but it's probably because, as you suspect, he's not really getting allowed to do a lot of the CEO things.
Right. And I would imagine too that, yeah, exactly. And I would imagine they would want a different CEO for the United States than Ben. But who knows? He might be the perfect person for the job. I don't know.
I wish them the best. We're going to find out Tuesday, August 12th, before the market opens. We're going to get Bitfarms quarterly results. So we're at least, we've been in the dark for the last couple of months. They're not telling us what's going on. So we'll get a little bit of a better picture then. And Larry's asking, when's the Bitcoin top going to hit? I think we're a long way away from the Bitcoin top hitting in this cycle. And I would answer that this way. If it followed all of the previous cycles, which have, they say history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. They have been very, very similar. So somewhere in October or November of 2025 would mirror the typical Bitcoin 4-year cycle. But there are a lot of other cycles, 4-year cycles, and other cycles going on that aren't mirroring the previous cycle. So I think there's every reason to believe that this will get extended. But I do think between now and October and November, Bitcoin's going to go up quite a bit. I just don't think it's going to be done. I think it's going to keep going. That's just my personal opinion. Midway one, I think quite honestly, and I'll read you what he said because it's a good question. It's puzzling that Bitfarms wasn't able to make the things work in Paraguay, but now Hive seemingly is. I think they needed the money. I think they sold that because they needed the money, because their stock was getting decimated and they could not raise any money through equity. So I think now, subsequent to that, as things have turned around, they did borrow $300 million, but not for Bitcoin mining, for their AI infrastructure. So I don't think they're going to get a bump on that unless and until they announce, that they're starting to get contracts and revenue. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but I suspect we are in, whether it's a super cycle that's going to go on for years and years, at a minimum, I think we're in an extended cycle, because we still have very high interest rates that I strongly believe are going to be lowered a lot. And I think we will move from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. I think in the United States, you're going to start at some point getting checks in the mail again. And that's what was going on when Bitcoin had its massive run at the peak of the last 4-year cycle. So those things are deferred. Those are going to happen a little later this time around. And so I think those will be continued catalysts for Bitcoin to keep moving up. 98 likes, and we're already in overtime, and we're not at 100. Are we going to get there? We're 2 likes short. We're just taking a television timeout here. So let me see if I missed anything. Oh, And the other thing is, so back to Bitfarms. Before that announcement, on July 22nd, so, over a week ago, they announced a corporate share buyback program. And I think for Bitfarms, that was one of the first proactive moves we've seen in a long, long time. So you got a couple of things in a row here in a short window of time where all of a sudden it seems like they've regrouped, they've come up with a plan. And this is basically Bitfarms saying, if you want our stock to trade at 80 cents, we'll buy it ourselves, because that number's stupid, which in my opinion, it is. It was trading at significantly less than book value. And there's just no reason for that. And I think you're going to see their financial statements are going to be decent. We'll see. They didn't give us monthly updates, so we don't have quite as much information to make a judgment on that one as the companies that let us know what they're doing every month. Guys. All right, well, we're wrapping it up, George. Have a good night. Have a good weekend.
You too, guys.
All right, everybody. Oh, thank you. We are at 102 likes, so we did get there under the wire. If we take a last look, Bitcoin's back down to around $113,600. And again, not to harp on the bad news, but if we look at this week, this was a rough week. We've had so many good weeks in a row, right? This was last week. This was the week before. I mean, the week before that I moved, but it was even better than this. We've been on a good run. So, okay, we definitely had a bad week. August has had a horrible start. I think it's a trick. I think it's a fake out. They're going to tank August for the first couple of days, and then it's going to be off to the races. That's my opinion, not financial advice. I thank everybody, especially those who gave a super chat, especially our members. I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend, and go Bitcoin.